In this lesson, we'll be creating this watercolour painting of a glass and jug filled with ice and iced tea. Painting glass can be a little tricky because of the distortion of light and colour due to light refraction, but we'll talk more about this as we work through the project. So let's get into it. I always like to set up a still life, as a real setup gives a very truthful representation of colours. But we've supplied a pretty good photo of the setup and an accurate outline that you can find on our website, along with a PDF lesson plan. For materials, we'll be using some A3 cotton watercolour paper, a 25mm wide artist Taklon brush, a number 2 traditional mop brush, a gallery series brush set, a 12-piece watercolour paint set, and an oval plastic palette to mix and hold our paint. To transfer this outline, simply shade the backside with a 6B pencil. Flip the printout shaded side down onto the cotton paper and retrace the line work with a sharp pencil. This is a really easy way to transfer the outline, a sort of shortcut if you like, to get you painting straight away. Regardless of this shortcut, drawing is an important foundation, and we'd suggest everyone continues to hone their drawing skills. Once the outline is on, I tape the sheet onto the table, or a board if you don't want to tape it to your table. I dip the 25mm Taklon into fresh water and pre-wet the sheet. I then create a very wet mix of black and yellow ochre and lay a rough variegated wash. Variegated just means the colour fades out as I move down the page. While this coat is still wet, I use a clean tissue to soak the pigment off the paper where the jug and cup are. I then create a lemon yellow mix and paint in the lemons. The rule of thumb with watercolours is to work from the lightest colours first and move up the scale, hopefully laying in the darkest colours on last. I always have a tissue in my hand ready to dab out any colour that is maybe laid on too dark or is in the wrong position. Always have a spare sheet of paper to test any colours on before committing to the painting. When you build up the tone, sometimes it's good to dollop the paint on so it beads and let it dry naturally. I then lay on a strong mix of lemon yellow to suggest the rind. It's best to put the lemons in first, as we will be laying washes of colour over them. The first wash is a very light mix of lemon yellow with a touch of burnt sienna. This will be the lightest areas of ice. This is laid down with that 25mm Taklon brush again. As I do this, I'm very mindful not to overwork the colour over the lemons. If you scrub the colour on, you can dissolve any underlying colour, as it will reconstitute into the wet wash you're laying down. So try to get it on as quickly and as gently as you can. Once the first wash is down, we can let that become touch dry and continue to build up all of our tones. If we look at our reference photo, we can see the reddish sienna being reflected into the rim of the jug, so we can lay this in. I use the traditional mop to do this. I love these brushes as they can hold so much liquid. You don't have to continually keep charging your brush. While I have this tone, I add it over the jug and cup. At this point, I pay close attention to the reference photo and don't lay any of this tone on areas where the ice is pushed up against the glass. I leave these areas free of the tone. I then just keep laying up tones over the previous ones. This is referred to as overlaying washes, which is essentially a glaze. The enemy of watercolour is muddy colours, and glazing helps one avoid muddy, opaque or dull shadows. This iced tea has a real reddish hue to it, and to mix this tone I use a watery mix of burnt sienna and cadmium red pale. I lay in a dark tone to establish some shadow areas from that ice. This gives the ice some dimension and shape. I then add some very dark tones, like at the bottom of the jug here. You will notice that the wetness of the paper has a bearing on how strong the colour is too. If the paper is saturated, the pigment will soak into the paper, giving a much softer tone. This is referred to as wet in wet technique. It creates a fluid, fun and unpredictable effect. I can see by looking at the reference photo how dark the base is, and where there is no ice it is very red. So I create a strong mix of burnt sienna and lay this over the appropriate areas. Another important thing to bear in mind with painting glass is how it distorts the elements inside it. This is due to the way it bends the light. This is called light refraction. You can tell this by the way the slices of lemon don't appear to be circular. If we look at the top of the jug, we can see a series of light greys to areas of full black. After a little bit of close observation, we can lay these tones in. I use a rigger brush for this and just use black, but use a lot of water to achieve a fairly light tone. This is another funny phenomenon of clear glass, that there are grey tones that reflect off it. But if they're there, we put them in. The darks always pull a painting together.